My name is Stephen Malinowski, and when I was 23 years old, I had a stroke. It was a pretty typical morning. It was a Friday morning in February. I was working in an elementary school as a teacher's assistant, and all of a sudden I heard like a very loud pop followed by a ringing and just an overall lack of hearing out of my left ear. It was a sensation that I never felt before, a pain that I never felt before, and it was accompanied by dizziness. I looked up at the clock and it was spinning. Within a few minutes it passed. I got my vision back. I still had a faint hearing loss, but I felt okay. I told the teacher I was working with, and we agreed if I wasn't dizzy anymore and I felt safe enough to drive home, I should probably take the rest of the day off. So I got in my car and I drove home. Knowing that I just lost my balance and my vision for a little bit, I felt like the safest option was to avoid the parkway. So I took the back streets and I made a phone call to my girlfriend and I told her what happened. I'm on my way home just so she wouldn't be upset or worried. And the ear pain was pretty intense. So every time she spoke, kind of like every word was piercing my ear to the point where I asked her if she could stop speaking. And she said, okay, no problem. Do you want me to hang up? And I said, please don't. Just kind of stay on the line in silence in case I get dizzy again while I'm driving. I might need some help. And sure enough, I was getting closer to home. After a few minutes, the dizziness came back, but this time, like times 10, a headache, ear ringing, and I'm driving probably going about 40 miles per hour. So I basically just kind of closed my eyes and veered off the road, and I pulled my car over and stopped. The next thing I remember, I was sitting in my car, very disoriented and in a lot of pain, and I noticed that there was a numbness beginning in the back of my throat that started to spread to the rest of my face. And at the time, I'm trying to explain to my girlfriend that I'm in trouble and I need help, just kept screaming like, help, come get me. And she was like, okay, well, where are you? I'll come get you. And I tried to explain my location, but my lips were drooping to the point where I wasn't able to make any sense. I was just kind of babbling. And I remember using two of my fingers to prop my bottom lip up to make the words I wanted to make. And I eventually was able to like mutter out the words KFC and Chase Bank. And somehow after that, she used those two locations and she found me. After she came and got me, I sort of stumbled out of my car to try to get into her car. And once I sat down in her car, I vomited. And that's when she was like, okay, something's seriously wrong with him. Instead of going to the hospital, we decided to just swing by an urgent care and see what they had to say. The doctor who was handling me just tested me for an ear infection, and basically everything came back negative, and he said, you should just go home and sleep it off. So I went home and I tried to sleep it off, but at home I still had a headache. I still wasn't hearing fully. I had ear pain and I couldn't hear. And my mom sort of stepped in and she was uncomfortable from the start with that whole diagnosis. So she was like, you know what, we're going to the hospital. So about 6 hours after my initial symptoms, I finally was being treated at an emergency room and tested for what possibly could have caused my incident. And even there, most of the doctors didn't really consider stroke. And eventually, at about 11:30 p.m., a neurologist came in and explained to my parents that they found 2 infarcts on my brain where it was evidence that there was a lack of oxygen flow, which was caused by a blood clot in the arteries of the brain, which otherwise is known as a stroke. The diagnosis didn't really bother me so much. Like, hearing you had a stroke can be kind of scary, but to me, I felt like the worst was behind me. I had no residual effects, so I felt pretty okay. But the problem was the uncertainty with what caused the strokes, and the fact that this happened to me was having quite the effect on my family and my girlfriend and people that I care about. So just like seeing them upset and worried for me just kind of made me feel a little uncomfortable, and I just wanted to make sure that I could do everything I could to make sure they knew that I was okay. I'm here today working with the American Heart Association to share my story and promote stroke awareness, to let people know that strokes can happen to anybody at any age. I feel extremely fortunate that I came away from this with really no residual effects, and I'm living a very happy and healthy lifestyle. But I know that if somebody else was experiencing stroke symptoms and they followed all the steps that I did, they might not have had such a fortunate outcome. I know I should not have gotten in a car. I know I should have definitely gone to a hospital, and I know I should have gone to a hospital fast. And if sharing my story can save at least one life, then any time I spent talking about it will all be worth it. My name is Stephen Malinowski, and helping people is my why.